The massive ship hung in the darkness above Earth, invisible to every human eye below. Inside the vessel, Director Vax stood before a wall of screens showing different parts of the blue planet. His crystalline body reflected the light from the displays as he watched tigers move through forests and sharks swim through oceans. "These creatures are magnificent," Vax said to his team. "Earth is truly a death world. So many apex predators on one planet." The research vessel called Infinite Inquiry had been studying Earth for 3 months now. The Galactic Collective had many rules about primitive worlds, and the most important rule was simple: never contact the dominant species. The problem was that Vax and his team had made a mistake. They thought they knew which species ruled Earth. They were wrong. "Prepare the collection teams," Vax ordered. "We need live specimens: tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks. The Council wants to study how Death World predators behave." In the cold forests of Siberia, Minho knelt in the snow and examined tiger tracks. He had been studying the Siberian tiger population for 6 years now. The big cats were dying out, and Minho had dedicated his life to protecting them. At 34 years old, he had spent more time in these frozen forests than in cities. The tracks were fresh. A large male had passed through here maybe an hour ago. Minho followed them carefully, keeping his distance. He never wanted to disturb the tigers. He only wanted to count them, track their movements, and make sure they were healthy. Something bright flashed in the sky above the trees. Minho looked up and froze. A silver craft hovered above the forest, completely silent. It was huge, maybe 50 meters wide, and it had no wings or engines that he could see. The craft shimmered like it was trying to hide, but something was wrong with its camouflage. "What the hell is that?" Minho whispered. A beam of blue light shot down from the craft. It hit the ground about 200 meters away from where Minho stood. He heard a roar. The tiger. The beam had found the tiger he had been tracking. Minho ran toward the sound without thinking. His scientific mind knew this was dangerous. His human heart did not care. The tiger was being taken, and he had to stop it somehow. He broke through the tree line and saw the tiger floating up into the air, held by the blue light. The big cat roared and twisted, trying to escape, but the beam held it tight. Minho ran into the clearing and shouted, waving his arms. "Stop! Let it go!" The beam suddenly shifted. It swept across the ground and caught Minho. He felt his feet leave the snow. His stomach lurched as he rose into the air. Everything spun. He tried to grab onto tree branches but missed. The tiger was 10 meters away from him now. Both of them, floating up toward the silver craft. Minho's last thought before everything went dark was simple: "I'm being abducted by aliens." When Minho opened his eyes, he was lying on soft grass. Real grass. He could smell earth and trees and water. For a moment, he thought maybe it had all been a dream. Maybe he had fallen and hit his head in the snow. Then he saw the sky. It was not a real sky. The blue color was too perfect, too even. No clouds, no sun. Just a flat blue glow that came from everywhere and nowhere. Minho sat up and looked around. He was in a forest that looked almost exactly like the Siberian wilderness. There were pine trees, rocks, a small stream, and snow on the ground. But something felt wrong about it. Everything was too clean, too arranged. It was like a zoo habitat, because that was exactly what it was. Minho stood up and turned in a circle. The forest stretched in every direction, but after a few hundred meters, he could see where it ended. There was a shimmer in the air, like heat waves on a hot road. Beyond the shimmer, he could see metal walls. "I'm in a cage," he said out loud. His voice sounded flat in the artificial space. A roar echoed through the trees. Minho's heart jumped. He knew that sound. The tiger was here too. Somewhere, in this fake forest. Over the next few hours, Minho explored his prison carefully. The habitat was huge, maybe 3 square kilometers. It had everything a Siberian forest would have. Trees, rocks, a stream with running water, even some bushes with berries. In one corner, he found a pile of raw meat. It smelled fresh, food for the predators. Minho realized he was not alone in this place. He heard sounds in the distance, growls, splashing water, heavy footsteps. The aliens had not just taken the tiger, they had taken multiple predators. As he walked near a rocky area, Minho saw them for the first time. The aliens. They stood on the other side of the shimmer wall, watching him. One of them pointed at him. They were too far away for Minho to see details, but he could tell they were not human. Their shapes were wrong. Too tall, too thin, moving in ways that humans could not move. Minho walked closer to the wall and waved his arms. "Hey, can you understand me? I'm not an animal. I'm a person." The aliens did not react. They just kept watching and making notes on glowing tablets. Minho felt anger rise in his chest. They thought he was just another animal, another specimen to study. They had made a terrible mistake, and he needed to make them understand. But how do you explain intelligence to someone who thinks you are just a smart animal? As the artificial sun began to dim, creating a fake evening, Minho found a sheltered spot under some rocks and sat down to think. He was a scientist. He could figure this out. He had to figure this out. The tiger's roar sounded again, closer this time. Minho stayed very still. He had spent years studying these animals, but always from a safe distance. Now he was trapped in here with them. No tranquilizer gun. No vehicle to escape to. Just his knowledge and his wits. He heard heavy footsteps in the bushes nearby. Something big was moving through the undergrowth. Minho slowly stood up and looked around for anything he could use as a weapon or tool. He found a large stick and held it tight. The bushes parted. The Siberian tiger stepped into view. It was the male he had been tracking. Minho could tell by the pattern of stripes on its face. The tiger was massive, maybe 250 kilograms of muscle and teeth and claws. It looked at Minho with orange eyes that reflected the dim false light. Every instinct in Minho's body screamed at him to run. But he knew that was the worst thing he could do. Running triggered the chase instinct in predators. Instead, Minho made himself stand still. He did not look directly into the tiger's eyes. He made himself smaller by bending his knees slightly. He held the stick, but not in a threatening way. The tiger watched him for a long moment. Minho could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Finally, the tiger huffed, turned its massive head, and walked away into the trees. Minho let out a breath he had not known he was holding. His legs were shaking. On the other side of the shimmer wall, the aliens were moving with excitement. They pointed at their tablets and at Minho. One of them, a young researcher named Thel, made a note. Specimen 47H shows unusual behavior. It did not run from apex predator 12T. It showed no fear response. Interesting. Minho sat back down under the rocks and put his head in his hands. He was trapped in an alien zoo, surrounded by Earth's deadliest predators. And his captors thought he was just another animal. This was going to be harder than he thought. 5 days had passed since Minho woke up in the alien habitat. He had learned many things in those 5 days. He learned that the artificial sun rose and set on a regular schedule. He learned that fresh water appeared in the stream every morning. He learned that raw meat was delivered to several locations throughout the habitat at dawn and dusk. Most importantly, he learned where the other predators spent their time. The tiger preferred the dense forest area in the north section. 2 wolves patrolled the eastern border. Something large lived in the stream, probably a crocodile, though Minho had not seen it clearly yet. He heard heavy breathing from a cave area that might be a bear. The aliens had created a mixed habitat, throwing together predators from different environments and climates. It was a terrible idea from a scientific standpoint. These animals would stress each other out. But Minho was grateful for one thing. The habitat was large enough that the predators could avoid each other most of the time. They had established territories naturally. Minho had claimed his own territory around the rocky shelter. He marked it the way animals would, by leaving signs of his presence. He piled stones in specific patterns. He broke branches at the edges of his area. He even urinated at the boundary points, knowing the other predators would smell it and understand this space was claimed. The aliens watching him found this fascinating. They made many notes about his territorial behavior. But Minho had a bigger problem than territory. He was hungry, and he refused to eat raw meat. On the first day, he had tried to eat some of the berries from the bushes. They made him sick. The aliens had probably included poisonous plants by mistake, not knowing which earth plants humans could safely eat. The only food source was the raw meat left for the predators. Minho stared at the pile of meat near his shelter. It looked like beef, maybe from a cow or similar animal. It smelled fresh enough. Raw meat could make him sick with bacteria or parasites, but he would starve if he did not eat. There had to be another way. Minho gathered dry grass and small twigs. He found 2 pieces of wood, one soft and one hard. He had learned how to make fire during his wilderness training years ago, though he had never needed to do it for real. There were always matches or lighters available in the modern world. Not anymore. He spent 2 hours working the hard stick against the soft wood, creating friction. His hands hurt. Sweat ran down his face. The aliens watched with intense interest. What was Specimen 47H doing? A tiny ember appeared in the wood dust. Minho's heart jumped. He carefully transferred it to the dry grass and blew on it gently. The grass smoked, then caught fire with a small flame. Inside the observation room, alarms started going off. "Director Vax!" a technician shouted. "Specimen 47H has created combustion." Vax rushed to the screens. He watched Minho feeding small sticks to the growing fire. How did it do that? What instinct drives this behavior? Thel, the young insectoid researcher, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "Sir, I do not think this is instinct. Look at the purposeful movements, the careful preparation. This is planned behavior." "Nonsense," Vax said. "Many animals use tools. Birds build nests. Apes use sticks to get insects. This is just advanced animal behavior." But Thel was not convinced. He watched as Minho carefully placed stones around his fire to contain it, then skewered pieces of meat on sticks and held them over the flames. Specimen 47H was cooking its food. Minho ate the cooked meat slowly, savoring every bite. It was not seasoned and slightly overcooked, but it was safe to eat and tasted wonderful after 5 days of hunger. He made sure to keep the fire going, feeding it small amounts of wood throughout the day. The fire changed everything. It gave him warmth, a way to cook food, and a tool to keep the other predators away. Fire was the oldest human technology, and it was just as useful on an alien ship as it had been on the African savanna 1,000,000 years ago. Over the next week, Minho transformed his small territory. He built a better shelter using branches and leaves, creating a structure that would keep him dry if it rained. He made simple tools, a sharp stone for cutting, a sturdy stick for defense, a container woven from grass to carry water. Every action was watched and recorded by the alien researchers. Minho knew they were watching. He had figured out where most of the cameras were hidden, so he decided to try something bold. He began to communicate. First, he drew in the dirt near his fire. He drew circles, squares, triangles, basic shapes. Then he drew numbers. 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. He wrote the numbers in both Korean and English. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The aliens observed but did not respond. Next, Minho found smooth stones and arranged them in patterns. He created a sequence. 1 stone, 2 stones, 3 stones, 5 stones, 8 stones. The Fibonacci sequence. Any intelligent species that understood mathematics would recognize it. Still, no response from the aliens. Minho felt frustration building. How could he prove he was intelligent? What would make them understand? He started writing. He used a sharp stone to scratch words into a large, flat rock. He wrote in Korean first, then in English. I am a person. I am intelligent. Please communicate. Inside the observation room, most researchers ignored these markings as random scratches. But Thel studied them carefully. He ran the patterns through analysis software. The computer found repetition, structure, and complexity in the markings. Director, Thel said quietly. I believe specimen 47H is attempting communication. Vax barely looked up from his reports. You are young, Thel. You want to see intelligence where there is only instinct. The human-looking specimen is clever. I grant you. But clever is not the same as sapient. But sir, the patterns are territorial markings or mating displays. Nothing more. Focus on your work. Thel returned to his station but continued watching Minho closely. Something was different about this specimen. Something important. On the 10th day, the aliens ran an experiment. They lowered the temperature in the habitat significantly. They were testing how the different predators would respond to cold stress. The polar bear loved it. The tiger was uncomfortable but survived. The wolves huddled together for warmth. Minho suffered. His fire helped, but the cold was intense. He had only the clothes he had been wearing when captured: thermal pants, a jacket, boots, and gloves. They were good quality gear for Siberian research, but not enough for the artificial cold the aliens created. Minho kept his fire burning constantly. He huddled close to it, feeding it wood throughout the long, cold night. His body shook with cold. His fingers felt numb even inside his gloves. As dawn approached and the artificial sun began to brighten, Minho heard heavy footsteps. He looked up and saw the tiger approaching. The big cat was also suffering from the cold. Its breath came out in great clouds of frost. The tiger looked at Minho. Then it looked at the fire. Then back at Minho. Slowly, carefully, the tiger laid down about 5 meters away from the fire. Close enough to feel the heat. Far enough to respect Minho's space. Minho stayed very still. His mind raced. The tiger was seeking warmth from his fire. A wild animal was choosing to trust him. At least a little bit. Because fire offered something it needed. They stayed that way as the temperature gradually rose with the false sun. 2 predators, human and tiger, sharing warmth in an artificial wilderness aboard an alien ship. Thel watched this interaction with growing certainty. This was not normal predator behavior. This was something else. Something that suggested complex thinking on both sides. He began compiling a report for Director Vax. He knew the director would reject it, but Thel had to try. Specimen 47H was not just another predator, it was a person, and they had made a terrible mistake by putting a person in a cage. 3 weeks into his captivity, Minho had created something remarkable in his small territory. His shelter was now a proper structure with walls, a roof, and a fire pit in the center. He had woven containers for storing water and food. He had even planted some non-poisonous seeds he found, creating a tiny garden near the stream. The alien researchers took note of all these developments. Some were starting to agree with Thel. Others, like Director Vax, refused to see what was obvious. It is impressive tool use, Vax admitted during a team meeting. But Earth is a death world. Evolution creates incredible adaptations. This specimen has evolved survival instincts beyond normal predators. That does not make it sapient. Thel wanted to argue but stayed quiet. He had learned that Vax would not listen to junior researchers. But Thel continued gathering evidence. Every day, specimen 47H did something new that suggested intelligence, planning, and abstract thought. Then Director Vax announced his grand experiment. We will test the true hierarchy of Earth's apex predators, Vax declared. We have collected magnificent specimens: tigers, bears, wolves, crocodiles. Now we will see which one dominates when they are forced into direct competition. Sir, Thel spoke up nervously. What about specimen 47H? It will be included, of course. It has shown dominance in its territory. Let us see if that dominance extends to direct confrontation. Thel felt cold fear in his thorax. If specimen 47H was truly sapient, they were about to murder a person for entertainment and research. But he had no authority to stop the experiment. The research team began preparations. They created a new central habitat, smaller than the others. Designed as an arena, it had mixed terrain: water, forest, and open ground. Every predator would have some environmental advantage, but no one would be completely comfortable. Minho was the last to know about the experiment. He was simply tranquilized during his sleep, then moved while unconscious. When he woke, everything was different. He was lying on grass in an open area. The sun was bright overhead. He sat up quickly, his heart pounding. This was not his territory. This was somewhere new. Then he heard them. Growls, splashing, heavy breathing. Minho turned and saw the other predators. 2 tigers, including the one he had shared warmth with, a massive polar bear that had to weigh 400 kilograms. 3 gray wolves moving as a pack. A saltwater crocodile in a shallow pool. 2 Komodo dragons, their forked tongues testing the air. And him. 1 human. No weapons except his mind. Minho felt real fear for the first time since his capture. This was not a shared habitat where everyone had their own space. This was an arena. The aliens wanted to see what would happen when apex predators were forced together. You idiots, Minho whispered. You cruel, stupid idiots. In the observation room, researchers from multiple species gathered to watch. Many had placed bets on which predator would establish dominance. Most bet on the polar bear for its size, or the tigers for their hunting skill. A few chose the crocodile for its armored hide and powerful bite. Nobody bet on the human. Thel did not bet at all. He just watched, with growing horror, as the experiment began. The first hour was tense but calm. The predators spread out across the arena, each testing the space and watching the others. The wolves stayed together, moving as a unit. The polar bear claimed the area near the water. The tigers prowled the forest edges. The Komodo dragons found sunny rocks to warm themselves. Minho climbed to high ground, a rocky outcrop that gave him a view of the entire arena. He needed to see everything. He needed to understand the space and the behavior of every animal around him. He noticed the bottleneck passages, the blind corners, the areas where sound echoed. He saw where the wind blew, carrying scent in specific directions. He watched how each animal moved, where they looked comfortable, where they seemed nervous. Minho was doing what humans do best. He was planning. The wolves were the first to challenge another predator. They saw one of the Komodo dragons as potential prey and moved to attack as a pack. But the Komodo dragon was too big, too well-armored. It turned and hissed, its mouth opening to show bacteria-filled saliva that could kill with infection. The wolves backed off, re-evaluating. The polar bear went to the water pool to drink and met the crocodile. Both were ambush predators. Both perfectly designed for aquatic hunting. They regarded each other for a long moment, then the crocodile slid backward into deeper water. The bear was bigger. The bear got the shallow end. Minho watched all of this from his high ground and made no aggressive moves. He stayed still, stayed quiet. Staying invisible was better than winning fights. But on the second day, the arena became more dangerous. The animals were getting hungry and stressed. Territorial boundaries were forming, and those boundaries were starting to conflict. The tigers and wolves nearly fought over a piece of territory with good shade. The Komodo dragons wandered too close to the polar bear and were chased away with roars that echoed across the arena. Minho had found no food. There was water but no meat deliveries in the arena. The aliens were waiting to see what would happen when hunger took over. Minho knew what would happen. The predators would start testing each other. The weaker ones would become prey. And he was one of the smallest creatures here. He needed a strategy that did not involve fighting. He could not outrun a wolf, outfight a tiger, or outlast a bear. But he could think. He could plan. He could manipulate. Minho climbed down from his outcrop and began moving carefully around the arena's edge. He gathered specific materials: dry grass, branches, stones. He created noisemakers by tying rocks inside woven grass pouches. He built small barriers at key bottleneck points. The aliens watched, confused by these actions. What was Specimen 47H doing? On the third day, Minho put his plan into action. He used his noisemakers to create sounds in specific locations, sounds that mimicked distress calls or territorial challenges. When the wolves investigated one noise, they found themselves in territory the tigers considered their own. A confrontation started. Both groups backed off, but now they were wary of each other and had defined borders. Minho created a small fire near the crocodile's pool, using dried grass and friction. The smoke made the crocodile uncomfortable. It moved to a different part of the water, which happened to be closer to where the polar bear hunted. Now those two predators had to coexist in a smaller space, creating tension between them. He used stones to create rattling sounds that attracted the Komodo dragons toward the wolf territory. The wolves, already on edge from the tiger encounter, chased the dragons away. Quote, now the Komodo dragons associated that area with danger and avoided it. Piece by piece, Minho was controlling the arena. He was not dominant through strength. He was dominant through manipulation. He turned predators against each other, created safe zones for himself, and made everyone too stressed about each other to pay attention to him. The aliens began to notice what was happening. Thel watched with amazement as Specimen 47H orchestrated the entire arena's behavior without engaging in a single fight. Director Vax, Thel said quietly, Specimen 47H is not competing, it is conducting. Vax stared at the screens. He saw the pattern now. Every movement Specimen 47H made had purpose. Every action created a specific result. This was not instinct. This was strategy. On the fourth day, something unexpected happened. The tiger that had shared Minho's fire in the previous habitat encountered him near the water pool. The two looked at each other across 10 meters of open ground. The tiger remembered. It had seen this small creature before, had felt warmth from its fire. This creature had never threatened the tiger, had never tried to take the tiger's territory or food. The tiger huffed and turned away, going back to its own territory. It had decided that the strange two-legged creature was not prey, not competitor, but something else entirely, something that existed outside the normal rules. The other predators noticed. If the tiger did not see this creature as a threat, maybe they should reconsider too. By the fifth day, Minho had achieved something incredible. He had become the apex predator of the arena, not through violence, but through intelligence. Every animal had learned to avoid certain areas because of his manipulations. Every predator had encountered something that confused their instincts, making them hesitant and cautious. Minho stood on his rocky outcrop, tired and hungry, but alive. Below him, Earth's most dangerous predators prowled an artificial wilderness, unknowingly following patterns that one human had created. In the observation room, Director Vax finally spoke the words he had been refusing to say. We need to contact senior xenoanthropologist Wylis. I think we made a mistake. A very serious mistake. Dr. Wylis arrived on the research vessel 3 days after Director Vax sent the emergency request. Wylis was a Keth, an amphibious species known for their expertise in studying developing civilizations. His skin was blue-green, and covered in patterns that shifted with his emotions. His large eyes could see into the ultraviolet spectrum, making him excellent at detecting subtle behavioral patterns. Director Vax met Wiles at the docking bay. Vax's crystalline body showed stress fractures from the tension of the past weeks. He knew his career was probably over, but that was less important than fixing the mistake he had made. Dr. Wiles, thank you for coming so quickly, Vax said. Show me the specimen, Wiles replied without greeting pleasantries. Show me this creature you think might be sapient. They went directly to the observation room. Minho had been moved out of the arena, back to a single habitat. This one more comfortable, with better shelter. On the screens, they watched him building something new with sticks and vines. Wiles studied the images for exactly 30 seconds before speaking. That is not a specimen. That is a person. You have kidnapped a member of Earth's dominant species. The observation room went silent. Even though many researchers had come to suspect this, hearing it confirmed by someone of Wiles's reputation made it real. How can you be certain? Vax asked, though he already knew the answer. Look at the complexity of his structures. Look at the planning required. Look at his behavior in the arena footage you sent me. Wiles's skin patterns turned dark, red, with anger. You put a sapient being in a cage with apex predators as entertainment. Do you understand what you have done? This violates every protocol of the collective. This could mean war. This could mean war. War? Vax's voice cracked. The humans do not know about us yet. They are on the cusp of space travel, advanced artificial intelligence, quantum computing. In 20 years, they would have been ready for first contact. But now one of their people has been abducted and imprisoned. When they find out. Wiles did not finish the sentence. What should we do? Thel asked from his station. Despite being junior, he felt responsible. He had been the first to suspect the truth, but he had not fought hard enough to stop the experiments. First, we communicate with him, Wiles said. Then we figure out how to fix this disaster. 1 hour later, the research team activated the translation system in Minho's habitat. It was technology normally reserved for first contact scenarios with new, sapient species. The system could analyze language patterns and create rough translations within minutes. Minho was sitting by his fire, cooking a piece of meat on a stick, when he heard a strange clicking sound. He looked up and saw a device had appeared in his habitat, lowered from the ceiling by mechanical arms. Specimen 47H, a voice said from the device. The voice was artificial, translated by computer, but the words were in Korean. Forgive us. We understand now. You are not a specimen. You are a person. Minho dropped his stick. After weeks of trying to communicate, they were finally listening. He felt a wave of emotions. Relief, anger, fear, hope. He walked slowly toward the device. I have been trying to tell you that for a month, Minho said carefully. My name is Kang Minho. I am a biologist, and I would very much like to go home. In the observation room, every researcher heard these simple words and understood their implications. This being had a name, a profession, a home. All the things that defined personhood. Kang Minho, Wiles spoke through the device. My name is Wiles. I am a xenoanthropologist. I study civilizations. I need to tell you that your capture was a mistake. We thought humans were non-sapient predators. We were wrong. We are deeply sorry. Minho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You thought we were animals? Did you not see our cities from space? Our satellites? Our communication networks? We saw them, Wiles admitted. But many non-sapient species build complex structures. We believed another species controlled those technologies. We were looking at incomplete data. And have. 5 or 7. What species did you think was in charge? We were not certain. Some researchers thought it might be domestic dogs, given how widespread they are and how humans seem to serve them. Despite everything, Minho almost laughed at that. Dogs? You thought dogs were in charge and humans were there? It sounds foolish when you say it that way, Wylis said. But yes, that was one theory. Minho sat down heavily on a rock. The absurdity of it all was overwhelming. He had been abducted, imprisoned, nearly killed, all because aliens thought he was a pet or a wild animal. Can I see you? Minho asked. Not through a screen. In person. There was a long pause. Wylis consulted with the team. Finally, he responded. Yes, but there will be a barrier between us for safety. Not for our safety. For yours. We do not want to expose you to alien bacteria or viruses. 20 minutes later, Minho stood at the shimmer wall of his habitat. The wall became clear, no longer showing the illusion of endless forest. On the other side, he saw them. Wylis was the most striking, with his blue-green skin and huge eyes. Thel was insectoid, with multiple arms and mandibles that clicked nervously. Director Vax looked like he was made of colored glass, his body catching and reflecting light. There were others too. Species Minho had never imagined. They were all staring at him with the same expression humans might have if they suddenly realized their test subject was a person. Hello, Minho said, raising his hand in a wave. Hello, Kang Minho, Wylis replied. Would you be willing to answer questions? Help us understand humanity. Will you help me get home? We are trying to determine the best way to do that. It is complicated. Complicated how? Wylis's skin patterns shifted to show distress. Your people do not know we exist. We have protocols about contacting civilizations before they are ready. If we return you now, we must reveal ourselves to your entire planet. That could cause panic, cultural disruption, even violence. In quote. Minho felt anger rising. So your protocols matter more than my freedom? No, Wylis said firmly. Your freedom matters more. But we need to find a way to return you that causes the least harm to your people. Some members of the collective want to keep you here, to avoid the problem entirely. I am fighting against that solution. You mean some want to keep me prisoner forever? Yes. But I will not allow it. You have rights. You are sapient. You were wrongly imprisoned. You must be returned home. And your people deserve to know the truth. Over the next several days, Minho worked with Wylis and the research team. He answered countless questions about human history, culture, technology, and biology. He explained how humans evolved from tree-dwelling primates, how they spread across the planet, how they developed agriculture, writing, science. The aliens were fascinated and horrified in equal measure. Earth was indeed a death world, more dangerous than they had realized. And humans had not just survived it. They had conquered it. They had become the apex species not through strength, but through endurance, cooperation, and intelligence. We persistence hunted, Minho explained. Our ancestors would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. We are not fast. We are not strong. But we never stop coming. The aliens found this terrifying. A predator that never gave up, that could chase prey until it died from tiredness. What would such a species be like when they reached the stars? But Minho also told them about human compassion. He explained how humans kept some predators as pets and companions, how they built protected areas to save species from extinction, how they created art, music, and poetry, not for survival, but for beauty. We are predators, Minho said. But we are also more than predators. We chose to be more. We decided that being the strongest was not enough. We wanted to be better. End well. Wylis listened to all of this and made a decision. He contacted the Galactic Collective's High Council and made his recommendation. Humanity should be contacted early. They should be offered limited membership in the collective. And Kang Minho should be the bridge between two civilizations. Not everyone agreed. There were long debates, but eventually, the council voted in favor of Wilus's plan. They would return Minho to Earth, and they would reveal themselves to humanity. The age of isolation was ending. Humanity was joining the galactic community, whether they were ready or not. The preparation for first contact took 2 weeks. During that time, Minho lived in a proper room on the research vessel, not a habitat cage. He had a bed, a bathroom, a desk, and access to the ship's information systems. He spent hours learning about the Galactic Collective, its member species, its history, and its laws. The more he learned, the more he understood how significant this moment was. Earth was being fast-tracked for contact. Skipping decades of the normal evaluation period, it was unprecedented, and it was happening because the collective had made a mistake. Minho insisted on one condition before returning to Earth. He wanted all the captured predators returned safely to their natural habitats. Every tiger, bear, wolf, crocodile, and Komodo dragon that had been taken from Earth needed to go home. It will be complicated, Wilus said. We will need to return them to precise locations where they were captured. We cannot disrupt Earth's ecosystems. I can help with that, Minho offered. I know these animals. I know their habitats. Let me guide the release teams. Wilus agreed. It seemed fitting that humanity's first diplomatic act would be protecting Earth's other predators. The day before the scheduled return, Minho visited the habitat areas one final time. He wanted to see the Siberian tiger, the one he had shared cold nights with, the one who had remembered him in the arena. The tiger was resting in a climate-controlled habitat that mimicked the Siberian forest. When Minho approached the viewing wall, the big cat lifted its head and watched him with orange eyes. You are going home tomorrow, Minho said quietly. Back to the snow and trees. Back to freedom. The tiger huffed, a sound that might have been acknowledgement or just breathing. Minho liked to think it understood somehow. Thel joined Minho at the viewing wall. The young researcher had become something close to a friend over the past weeks. It seems fond of you, Thel said, his mandibles clicking softly. I think it just remembers me. Animals have good memories for creatures that did not hurt them. What will you tell your people about us? Thel asked. Will you tell them we are dangerous? Minho considered this. I will tell them you made a mistake. A big, terrible mistake. But then you fixed it. You listened. You learned. You made things right. That is what matters. Some humans will fear us. Yes, some will. But others will be excited, curious. Humans always want to know what is beyond the next horizon. Now the horizon is space itself. Minho looked at Thel. Will you be part of the contact team? If you will have me, I want to help build bridges between our species. Then you are welcome. But Thel. What? Promise me that the collective will respect Earth's choice. If humanity says no to membership, no to contact, you have to accept that. You cannot force us into your civilization. Thel's patterns shifted to show solemn agreement. I promise. Dr. Wilus has already made this part of the contact protocols. Humanity will choose its own path. The next morning, 3 collective ships appeared in the sky above the United Nations headquarters in New York. They did not decloak all at once. They phased into visibility slowly, giving humanity time to process what they were seeing. News networks around the world exploded. Every camera, every phone, every satellite pointed at the silver ships, hovering motionless in the sky. Governments went into emergency sessions. Military forces mobilized. Some people panicked. Others celebrated. The world held its breath. A message was broadcast simultaneously in every human language to every communication device on Earth. Dr. Wilus spoke calmly and clearly. People of Earth, we come in peace. We are representatives of the Galactic Collective, an association of civilized species. We are here to return one of your people, and to offer our apologies for a grave mistake we have made. The largest ship opened a bay door. A small shuttle emerged and descended toward the UN Plaza. Minho was inside, along with Wiles, Thel, and 2 other collective diplomats. When the shuttle doors opened, Minho stepped out first. He wore his own clothes, cleaned and repaired. He looked tired, but healthy. Cameras captured every moment as he walked across the plaza toward the assembled world leaders. "My name is Kang Minho," he said, his voice amplified by the shuttle's systems. "I am a wildlife biologist from Korea. 5 weeks ago, I was accidentally abducted by the Galactic Collective during a scientific expedition. They believed humans were non-sapient predators. They were wrong. They have brought me home, and they want to make things right." Behind him, Wiles and the others emerged from the shuttle. The first time in human history that humanity saw aliens in person, walking among them, the Secretary General of the United Nations stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we welcome you. Though the circumstances are unusual, we are glad you have returned one of our people safely." Minho smiled. "They brought more than just me." Over the next 3 days, collective ships appeared at sites around the world. In Siberia, the Tiger was released back into its territory, along with tracking equipment that would help researchers monitor its health. In the Arctic, the polar bear returned to the ice. In Australia, the saltwater crocodile slipped back into tropical waters. Every animal went home. Local wildlife researchers watched in amazement as alien technology carefully placed these animals exactly where they had been taken, with no harm done. The collective was showing humanity that they could be trusted to handle Earth's precious wildlife with care. Minho personally oversaw the tiger's release. He stood in the snow of the Siberian forest, watching as the containment field lowered and the big cat stepped onto familiar ground. The tiger paused at the edge of the forest, looking back at Minho one final time. "Be well," Minho whispered. "Survive, thrive. We share this planet, you and I. Predators both. But we can do better than just survive. We can protect each other." The tiger turned and disappeared into the trees. Minho felt a weight lift from his chest. Everything was as it should be. 3 years later, humanity had not joined the Galactic Collective as full members. They had accepted provisional observer status, allowing them to learn and interact with alien civilizations while maintaining full independence. No human was required to interact with aliens if they did not wish to. No alien technology was forced on humanity. Earth chose its own pace of integration. Minho served as Earth's primary liaison to the collective. He split his time between diplomatic work and his true passion: wildlife conservation. With collective technology and support, the Siberian tiger population had increased by 30%. Protected reserves used alien surveillance systems to prevent poaching. Habitat restoration projects benefited from advanced environmental technology. Thel became Minho's closest collaborator. Together, they wrote papers comparing predator evolution across multiple worlds. They discovered that Earth was unique not because it was a death world, but because its apex predator had chosen compassion over domination. On a cold winter morning in Siberia, Minho stood in the same forest where he had been abducted. A young researcher named Jiho stood beside him, one of many who had joined conservation efforts after learning that Earth's wildlife had caught the attention of alien scientists. "Dr. Kang," Jiho asked, "why do you think the predators in the habitat never attacked you?" Minho watched snow fall through the trees, thinking about the question. "They did not choose me, Jiho. I chose them. I chose to understand them, instead of fight them. I chose to work with their instincts instead of against them." That is the secret the aliens never expected. Earth's apex predator is the one that decided being apex was not enough. We wanted to be something better. Above them, barely visible in the gray sky, the infinite inquiry passed overhead. No longer a prison ship, it was now a bridge between worlds. Humans and aliens worked together aboard it, studying Earth's ecosystems with respect and wonder. In the forest, a tiger called out. Not a roar of challenge or fear, but a simple vocalization. Presence without threat. Existence without conflict. Minho smiled. The predators of Earth had learned to share their world with the strangest predator of all, the one who built fires, created art, and chose to protect rather than destroy. Humanity had passed its first test with the galactic community, not through strength or intimidation, but through compassion and wisdom. The same traits that had made humans successful on Earth would serve them well among the stars. The future was uncertain, as all futures are, but it was a future where humans and aliens would face it together, learning from each other, growing together, protecting the precious diversity of life wherever it existed. Minho pulled out his datapad, part collective technology and part human design, and made notes on the tiger population in this sector. Beside the scientific data, he added a personal observation. 20 Siberian tigers observed in Area 5 over 3 days. Population healthy and growing. Mission successful. Then he added one more line. We are all predators here. Human and tiger and alien alike. But we are also protectors. That makes all the difference. He looked up at the sky where alien ships moved among human satellites, where two civilizations were learning to coexist. It was not perfect. There were still tensions, fears, and misunderstandings, but there was also hope. There was cooperation. There was friendship. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.